Hello, hello, wonderful mummies, and welcome. And welcome to today's guest, Lara. You all already know her. Lara is one of the experts of the month, and she has been teaching us all about child development and how we and all of our children's caregivers can best aid our children's development. Lara, thank you so much for being here today and just taking the time to help us all.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
So I always start the conversation, usually with two questions, but we're going to do one for today. What is something that you wish that every mum knew?
Gosh, so my three boys now are 12, 10, and 5. And looking back, I wish I just listened to one person, chose that one person who I trust. And I think of this one person, her kids are, 10 years older than mine. I can see that her parenting's had a great effect, and just listen to one person and taking a deep breath, and kind of the constant noise, and everyone's got this different view and thinking, from family to friends, and then our culture and social media. I think I would have just listened to one person.
I love that advice. And I mean, even you say one person, but I was one of those people, I read all the books. And even the books, like, I wish I'd just chosen like one author, because even the books have just so many different views and opinions, and it really does become tricky of what to do and what's right and wrong. So I love that advice. Thank you. So today we are going to discuss mums going back to work. And it's a topic that I really love and I'd love to really get into. So for any mum who's already done this and gone through it, you'll know the fear and the anxiety that comes with it, and just all the logical issues as well, and like logistical issues. So Lara's going to discuss all that we need to know for the transition and how we can feel more confident and comfortable going back to work. Right off the bat, Lara, I'd love to address the myth that going back to work is bad for our children's developments.
Yeah, Christy, thank you for addressing this, because I think we're so bad at feeling guilty anyway, and this just compounds on every level. So just to show the research, firstly, from there's a wonderful study by the Harvard Business Review, which took thousands and thousands of parents, and over time, kids of working mothers grow up into happy adults. So we can ditch that one.
Oh, yeah.
And particularly what was interesting is that especially girls, so daughters of working mothers, have even better results than sons of working mothers in terms of them seeing a woman grow up and work and contribute to the family. And just a disclaimer there, the article mentioned the mommy wars between the stay-at-home moms and the working moms. And I think when we talk working mom, it's so important to go back to what you said, is that we feel enormous guilt. And so stay-at-home moms also feel guilty for other things. So I think it's really important to all just be together, and we are a community of moms. But that especially when you leave the home, you have this added nagging feeling that you're not doing the best, right?
Yeah.
And they'd be better off if they were with you. So it's so great when research comes out like this that can give moms peace of mind. The other bit of research out there is well known. It's old. It's by the child psychologists, and that's attachment theory. And basically, children can safely attach to more than one caregiver. So that's good news. But that caregiver needs to be consistent. And so the type of care is really important.
Oh, I like that. I really, really love that. And how do we, because I mean, like you said, we just have this guilt naturally in our bodies. How do we make ourselves feel better? And what can we do to kind of make that an easier transition for mums and for their families? Because it's not an easy transition.
No, it's not. One more little bit of research is the good enough mother. So some moms out there might have heard of that. And it was so freeing for me, because it said that all mothers, if you hit the nail on the head with your child just 30% of the time, so if 30% of the time you're with them, you interpret their cues correctly, you help them navigate big feelings, you're doing an amazing job, basically. 30% of the time we're going to be getting it wrong, and the other 30%, or each third, basically
33.3.
yeah, if you are navigating it with them, then whatever the situation is, big feelings, small things, changes, transitions, you are a good enough mother. And I find that so helpful. I think we think we have to be there 100% of the time, get it right every single time. And that's what develops this guilt. So in answer to your question, in terms of dealing with it, I think investing in the absolute best childcare that you can afford will really give you peace of mind. And that will be different for every family. But I'm from Nanny and Me, so there's no hiding that I think nannies are just the most incredible people, that you can have one-to-one top quality care in your own home for your child. And that is absolutely wonderful. And I'm sure we'll unpack more why. But with that, some of the mom guilt that I've chatted to moms is actually around wanting to also make a difference in South Africa. And so when you employ a nanny, not only is your child getting that one-to-one care, the consistent caregiver, but you're building the South African economy, you're providing work for someone who's unemployed, and you are changing their lives, because the training you invest in them will only benefit them and their family.
Well, actually, let's go on to that topic. Would you mind telling us all what Nanny and Me is, what it is that you do at Nanny and Me?
Yeah, sure. So Nanny and Me are weekly groups for nannies. And I'll never forget the day I sat down to finger paint with my son, James. He was 18 months and he had a wonderful nanny, and I was working part-time. And every morning I would leave and I'd say to her, can you finger paint with him? Or like, here's some Play-Doh, or here's a puzzle, and she would never engage in those things. And one day I said, let's sit down, and we finger painted together. So within a few moments, she was more engrossed in the paint than he was. And I turned to her and I said, Celia, have you ever painted before? And she said, no. And I said, have you ever built a puzzle? And she said, no, I never had the chance. And it was just in that moment where I just thought, I can't not do something about this. Here I am, this working mom, I'm flying out the door. I'm an occupational therapist, so I managed to leave some activities which are age appropriate, but here is this wonderful person, and it's not a lack of initiative. It's purely, what do I do with this stuff? I'm supposed to keep the house clean and the baby clean, and now you're asking me to paint and make a mess and play with spaghetti. Like, you can imagine how intimidating for a nanny. So yeah, we'd have weekly groups, because the nannies see the input. They see that if I do this activity, the little one changes. All children are different, so our trained facilitators are able to give them advice for that child and that activity within our groups. And then nannies make friends, children make their first friends, it builds community around learning, and nannies really stand taller and prouder having had some training.
And so I must say, we live in Noordhoek, and there's obviously Sandra runs the Nanny and Me here, an incredible Nanny and Me. A lot of our friends, nannies, and their kids go. So everyone speaks so highly of it. And I love also what you're saying about our responsibility to also help the community. And I've seen that through Nanny and Me, how those nannies, not only are they enjoying their job so much more, but then, for instance, one of my friends then left to the Netherlands, and she was able to get a job so much faster at a higher rate, because she had that training and that experience with Nanny and Me, and just knowing the developmental stuff behind that as well. So I think it's an incredible, incredible business. Well done, Lara.
Oh, thank you. Really is my passion.
Incredible. And I'd love to go on to that, and not saying that schooling is bad, or actually, this is my question then, rather. So would you say a nanny over school, and until what age?
Yeah, so I think if, with the proviso that you have the choice, I know a lot of moms out there, the local creche is the cheapest and quickest option. But if you have the choice, these are the reasons why I think a nanny is really worth considering, because of that attachment theory. So one-on-one care, you're never going to get that in even the best quality creche. That one-on-one care lets your baby know that they are safe, they are loved, and that their needs are met promptly. And there's so much going on about attunement, that it's not only about the child's needs being met, but they are able to make eye contact, that the person who's looking after them is picking up on their cues, You can imagine, even if a caregiver has 3 children or 4 children, and that's very low ratio for our creches. It's picking up on all those cues all the time and being able to just focus on what does this child need at this time. So from an attachment point of view, you're not going to beat that one-on-one care. Then in terms of immunity, so pediatricians have a term for this. They call it creche syndrome. And babies can actually be sick every 3 weeks when exposed to a group environment. And this is in the first 2 years. So your baby's immune system is very immature. And while some exposure to germs is good and builds their immune system, but that would happen like in a social environment with you and your friends, and they pick up colds and things. What we're talking about here is when a baby is sick, they just get better and they get sick again. And they get secondary infections like tonsillitis and bronchitis. So whilst a creche might start off looking cheaper, you've got to factor in those pediatrician visits, the antibiotics. And then from a mom's stress point of view, imagine having a sick baby. Sick babies can't go to creche. So you have to take work, take time off work, use your annual leave and be at home. So that adds a huge stress dynamic. There's also things to consider with the commute and the fact that your baby can receive care in their own home, with their own routines, their own toys, their own sleep space. So that's very important. In terms of the brain, the first 1,000 days is a term used in neuroscience, and it says that in the first 1,000 days, our baby's brains reach 80% of their adult size. What's happening in that brain is the cells are learning to talk together and talk to each other and learning to create pathways together. And that's the relaying of information, connecting the brain and all of its parts. What's fascinating is that everything is wired through our emotional center of our brain. So when your baby feels safe and loved, it actually means that we're building the architecture for the brain for thinking later on. So many people want a smart, clever baby. Well, it's actually those early caregiving experiences which set the foundation for that success. The last thing, a lot of moms feel, well, my baby's going to make friends and socialize, and that's why I'm choosing creche. Well, the child psychologists will tell you, OTs will tell you that children really start showing an interest in other children between 2 and 3. So that's a huge range. Some are very social from 2 and some only from 3, and that's normal. That happens when you have language. You can't socialize without language. So they have a huge language spurt in that time. And good socialization with others is dependent on our early socialization with the adults in our lives. If I feel safe and I feel loved and that I belong, again, those pathways in the brain are being built for happy, the ability to kind of make friends, how to make eye contact, how to take turns. And so that's don't send your child to creche just for that reason.
Yeah.
They will have plenty of time to make friends, and that you're actually giving them the best start to make friends by having a consistency with their adult caregivers.
I love it. As soon as people go into all the brain stuff, I love knowing about that, because it just gives you like such a solid foundation of, and again, like those questions of whether you're doing it right or wrong. But when you look at their brain and brain development, there's so much security in knowing, well, that's the answer, so I love that.
Yeah. And
back to,
if I may just interject there, that if someone had to go to creche, it's the same things you're going to look out for. You're going to look at how attached are these babies, how many children to carer, how are they dealing with immunity and that creche syndrome, how are they dealing with play, how are they helping my little one to focus on this toy now, because creches are very overstimulating for babies. How are they replicating the home environment, making little ones feel safe? And then then that can help moms who are listening, who have to send their little ones to creche, to evaluate in a really good way, is the school great? Because little ones can't talk until they're 2 or 3, so you have to go by what you can see and evaluate as a mother.
Yeah, and talk to the teachers and know that they also are aware of that stuff. And in terms of attachment theory, is it valuable for a child to attach to not saying just the mum and the dad and the nanny, but multiple people, so they almost don't attach too much to one person? Or does the science show that attaching to those certain people and having that comfort is actually better for kids?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the early years, we want consistency with our caregiving experiences, because what happens is children then learn to predict reactions. The words we say, they become the words in their heads. The way we respond to a stressful situation or to their stress becomes the pattern of dealing with stress later on. So what it's termed in the theory is inner certainty becomes outer predictability. And I love that, because it's saying that the more that foundation is strong, the more, even if you have granny and grandpa looking after little one, they're consistent in their way of caregiving. Dad, your partner's consistent in their way, and nanny and mommy. That's quite a big team, and many cultures have more than one caregiver. So it's not for us to say, oh, we have to be at all as the mom, but too many can actually, how is that little one learning that inner certainty, and then that becomes their window on the world later on to predict and to respond in the way they've sort of seen it happen. So yeah, that's really important in terms of attachment theory.
That's beautiful. And how do we foster that relationship between our nanny and our child? Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, so I would say through play. One of the biggest changes that moms say they see in their nanny and child through our program is just the bond, and that nannies are far more attentive to their little one in play. Again, from the neuroscience, we call that serve and return interactions. That when a baby serves, a giggle, a little coo, and looking at something, they show that they are giving us cues that they are ready to play. And then we respond, return the serve, just like a tennis game. And that builds these reciprocal pathways in the brain that are absolutely critical to the health of the brain and being able to learn. So again, that emotional attunement plus the return of the serve. So you know how little ones love the same things over and over again? That's because it's that predictability, the certainty. And then every now and again, there's a little bit of something that sparks the curiosity, and you go with that. So it's really about taking the baby's lead. And as I said, many nannies haven't had this opportunity to play with simple things like Play-Doh or messy play. And so they need the opportunity to learn those things. And as I said, with our nanny, she just blossomed, because now she was getting positive feedback from me, positive feedback from the little one. She was learning things that she took back to her own children. So that training is absolutely critical to build that bond. And moms can support that through training, and then also making sure that your nanny has the materials that she needs or asks for. Because, we're busy out the door, and she's asked for baking stuff about 3 times and we keep forgetting. So I would just, whatever your nanny shows that desire to really implement what she's learning, to make sure she has what she needs. And then the other tip I would say, especially now with our hybrid working situations, is to give your nanny space if you're working from home. It's quite hard when you're at home, right? And you hear your little toddler throwing a tantrum.
Yeah.
And your nanny is successfully or unsuccessfully navigating it. So firstly, make sure you're both on the same page, and that you've told her what she can do or not do when you are having a tantrum. But secondly, give her the space. Imagine if you just swoop in and kind of rescue her, or you never let her figure it out. And that's even from little babies, settling them to sleep or taking the bottle. Work out what your threshold is, and say to the nanny, I can manage 5 minutes of hearing them fuss or moan or have a tantrum, and then I'm going to come in and help you, and do that in a very respectful, empowering way. So yeah, that's just something that I've found a lot more now, because more and more parents are working from home, and it's so disempowering for our nannies if we don't give them that kind of that trust that they can work this out, that they'll have their own way, just like
and that space to step up and take that role, and also I guess for our kids to see them in that role, that I would think that that's also important for our kids to see them in a role that they can handle it, rather than mum swooping in, and mum's always the one that deals with it.
Yeah.
And that relationship, and I've seen this a few times where a kid then starts preferring the nanny to the mum, or starts preferring spending that time, or there's, the mum will come pick the child up from school, where usually the nanny walks down and the child is disappointed. What can you say to parents about that fear of a break in their relationship with the child, while the nanny and the child are building that bond?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I think if it was maybe granny doing that, I wonder if the mom would have the same sort of feeling about it. But children also go through phases of wanting mommy, then they want daddy, then they want nanny. And I think for a mom to take a deep breath and go, this isn't a reflection of my relationship with my child. Look how well bonded and attached they are to their nanny, and my turn will come next. They'll soon be wanting mommy for everything, or daddy for everything, or so I think that's really important. I think when that used to happen for me, that initial feeling, I would say to myself, how blessed is my child? They actually have like 2-on-1 care.
Yeah.
They have people they know love them and delight in them. And my nanny goes home, she has a wonderful night's sleep. She comes into the house and she's full of patience and energy to play with my child. So I think kind of trying to positively reappraise it and go, this is hard, and maybe I'm interpreting my own mommy guilt into this, but it's wonderful that they're so well bonded. And I think going back to your own relationship with, there's all the psychodynamic theory and stuff about your own relationships with your own mom.
Yeah.
And sometimes that comes into the picture. So, it's I would say celebrate it if you can. If you can be more objective and go, you know what, this is so awesome. I've enabled this relationship. It's good for my child. And they'll want me in a month's time.
Yeah. And I think you've touched on something really important there, because while it can be quite difficult for us in that stage, it is what is good for your child. Just like when they're teenagers and maybe they want to spend more time with their friends and with you, I can imagine that's also a difficult break in relationship. But all those different stages, they're good for what your child needs. So like what you said, if you can reframe that to put your child first, then it lessens the heartache. And Lara, preparing your nanny for such an important role, how can we do that other than obviously attending your classes?
Yeah, so really important. The two things moms worry most about is what happens if something happens, and then what are they doing all day? So we chatted about the play, but is anyone who interacts or looks after a child, even if it's the grandparents, as I say, everyone should have some first aid training, and that is absolutely critical. They're wonderful organizations who do that, especially with nannies as well. And that's not just what to do in an emergency, but most accidents happen in the home and are completely preventable. So part of the first aid training is your nanny learning to identify hazards, to keep watch, to know what to do if there's a burn. We have cultural differences on how to deal with things, but I bet you and your mom-in-law have differences on how to deal with a fever or a burn.
Big differences.
It's great because first aid puts everyone on the same page. So I would say that's a really important skill to have. Then the play and stimulation. But the really third one I want to just chat through is how we treat her. And I want you to think of yourself in your own workplace. Now imagine that in your work, you got no paid public holidays, you didn't have a contract, you had no training or job description, you had no performance reviews, and people asked you to please use a separate toilet to everybody else. And I know that's a lot to swallow, but that is more than 80% of what our nannies experience. Maybe not the last one, I really hope not, but I often say to moms, have a performance appraisal with your nanny. Have one every 3 months where you go out to lunch, take her to Spur, there's kiddie care there, they'll have a blast, and have a lunch with her and tell her what she's doing really well. Ask her what she feels she could improve on. Ask her what training she wants to do. I think because the nanny-mommy relationship happens within the domestic, our homes, we tend to forget that we're actually employers, that it's by law we should have contracts and UIF. And then it's these other things that we would expect in our own work that we don't really see as necessary with our own nannies. And, if you think about it, at the end of the day, your nanny's job satisfaction is going to impact how she cares for your child.
Hugely. And just performance in general, as you're saying those things, I'm thinking of like all of my studies in mindset and performance and like what makes us want to do better, be better. And if you're not treating people like that, and that's huge.
And just for moms listening to think, I'm an employer. How can I be a great employer? And maybe you've never employed someone at work, but just think of how you would want to be treated. On our website we have free downloads of contracts, and we've got a few more articles about communication and things like that, so people are welcome to go and look for those resources.
Awesome. And our last thing, any parting advice for the mums of the group, and then we'll say goodbye and tell them all about your links and your offers.
Oh, sure. Christy, I would say that one way of dealing with guilt, and I just actually sent a survey out, and 110 moms answered, and 81% struggle with mom guilt kind of every day. And the thing that came very clear was that they want to also be empowered in how to play with their child. And I think we have this picture of like we need to be doing these Pinterest activities and have everything beautifully set up. But I want to encourage them all to get home, put that phone away, and just spend 15 minutes. That's all you need. That's literally all your child needs to fill their love tank. Get on the floor, mimic them. Don't have this prescribed sort of, I need to do this and I need to do that. And so filling their tank's going to make them less moany and whiny. So when you're cooking dinner, you can focus a little bit, really just connect with them when you come back from work. And that will help with the guilt. If moms out there want some more tips and they're more mom who loves setting up activities and wants to do the sort of things we do at Nanny and Me, we've actually got some online courses that we developed during COVID, and they're really great for moms to watch and see, and there's shopping lists and all kinds of things. So those people can find on our website. And as I said, we've got lots of resources out there on just managing the mommy-nanny relationship. And then anyone is welcome to a free session, either in our online groups or face-to-face groups. But yeah, we really are so passionate about helping moms feel confident and centered and connected with their little ones, and nannies to feel that they can be inspired and stand taller and take pride in their work, and obviously for our little ones to thrive.
Oh, amazing. Ladies, so please take advantage of that. Lara said that find a Nanny and Me in your area, or there's courses online, and the first class is for free. So take advantage. I think everyone's going to love it. Lara, thank you very, very much for joining us today. And yeah, everyone also follow Lara. What is your social handle? You just go under the Nanny and Me.
Nanny and Me SA.
There you go.
And and on Facebook, but we can post that in the comments for this post, right? Yeah,
I will post it in the comments, and I'll also put the website in the top so that everyone can click on that and sign up for your class. Thank you, Lara, for joining us and just helping the mums so much today and in the last month, that you've been the expert of the month.
Thanks, Christy. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everyone.